Welcome to the Don't Panic, It's Just Data podcast, where we have a weekly conversation with people who are impacting the enterprise tech landscape. My name is Debbie Reynolds. I'm the founder and Chief Data Privacy Officer of Debbie Reynolds Consulting, an internationally recognized thought leader in data and emerging technologies. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Jordan Merson from the San Antonio River Authority about the usage of FME and ongoing projects. Welcome.
Hi, Debbie. I appreciate you having me on today.
Happy to have you here. Well, Jordan, why don't you tell us a bit about your background and career path leading up to your role at the San Antonio River Authority role?
That's a great question. I've had a long and storied career in IT for probably approaching 30 years now. I started back in the 90s. I was a graphic designer. And actually, that was predating my IT, I guess. Started as a graphic designer, and people started coming in to the agency wanting to get them one of them websites, wanted to make tons of money. And of course, I being the young kid in the agency came to me and was like, okay, we need you to go figure out how to make a website so we can make ourselves tons of money on this. So that's kind of how I got into development and data management, started building websites. Eventually moved into the San Antonio River Authority as the River Authority's web developer. Have been working in IT here now and have slowly worked up the ranks. Started working with the GIS team to help them get the web maps and everything they were doing up into online so that our constituency could see what we were doing and where we were doing it, and begin to actually then interact and download data from various locations where things were happening. Slowly, I took on the enterprise applications team, which means basically my team includes both GIS as well as the folks who are managing the financial systems, all of our database systems, all of our web systems. So anything that runs on a kind of a centralized server falls to my group.
That's a lot. So what experiences would you say were pivotal to shape your approach to your work?
Starting, like I say, going all the way back to in the 90s when the web was brand new, one of the things I learned very early on how to teach myself and rely on my own judgment and determination to figure things out. The biggest thing for me that has been pivotal and has shaped my approach is don't be scared by something new. Embrace it and find ways that you can use it, not only in the conventional means and manners that everybody's looking at it, but also look at it like a child and think about, okay, well, what else can I do with this? I always, one of the big things I always tell my team is like, we got to look at all of these pieces and all these things that we're working with as just Legos. And that we got a bunch of Legos on the table, and how are we going to assemble them and put them together so that we can. This user wants a race car. So cool. Well, let's get together, put the Legos together, make them a race car. But these users over here, it's the same core pieces that they want to work with, but what they actually need is a dump truck. So we're going to put the Legos together for them as a dump truck. So that just spirit of getting in there and trying to figure things out and not be constrained by preconceptions about what's capable of being done, I think are kind of the biggest driving approaches I have to my work.
I agree with that because data is the lifeblood of almost any organization. And so just how you use data may be different, but the core data may be similar, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. So why don't you tell our audience how the San Antonio River Authority managed data and workflows before implementing FME?
Well, it was a very broad smorgasbord of approaches, and it really kind of depended on who was the developer that was on staff at the time, and or even within the different capabilities. So it may have been a database administrator, it might have been myself, it might have been another developer that we had. But because there was no cohesive environment for us to work within, each of us had a different skill set. It may have been working with Python scripts to pull data and transform it, or we may have been working Visual Studio and creating sys packages and working in the .NET, more Windows environment, or it may have just been core bash scripts running on a Linux server, or working with, say, PHP, which is a web language, to create scripts to interact with various services. Prior to FME, there was a very broad spectrum of capabilities and ways of getting the data and putting it where we needed it. That led to challenges, though, because, of course, as soon as developer A left and whatever their flavor of way of doing it went with them, then the challenge was, okay, well, will we be able to find somebody who's going to be able to just pick that up and run with it? So prior to FME, that has been just an ongoing challenge for us, is that continuity of service as people and staff change out.
I think that's an excellent point about continuity, where people have all different fragments and different ways that they work on things. So since you adopted FME, how has it transformed your data processes and maybe your decision making?
Well, honestly, one of the things that when FME first came to the table, it was brought in by our GIS team, and the gentleman who brought it in, at the time, I was not overseeing the entire enterprise applications team. I just had a small at that point, I was really just seeing the development side of the house. When he brought it in and presented it, I was sitting on the meeting where we were discussing the pros and cons and whether we wanted to make this investment. And about halfway through, I said, okay, whoa, hold on. Actually, there's some really cool things about this product that I don't think we're talking about. FME as a tool is agnostic to the data source. So you can have any data source you want. It can be a web API, it can be a SQL server, it can be a GIS shape file or feature class, it can be a text file or an Excel spreadsheet sitting on your desktop. Then you bring it into the FME environment, and at that point, then you're using a low-code environment to do all of your manipulations. So now I don't have to worry about making sure that somebody has a specific language skill set to be able to manage this. I can actually, anybody who understands basic logic structure and how a program is laid out can follow the stepping stones that are on the screen to see what a given job is done. And then on the output, like I say, just like the input, it's agnostic to the data location. So again, all those examples that I gave of, SQL Server, MySQL Server, a REST API, a flat static text file, we can output to all that. So I said, okay, we've had historically, again, just like I started with, we have all these different tools we've been using for extract, transforming, and loading ETL processes. We can consolidate them all into one low-code application that will allow us to standardize and keep this together in a single library that anybody will be able to come to later on, pick up, and continue to manage, maintain, and add to. So
what you're describing is almost like a Rosetta Stone for data, right?
Absolutely. And what's great is again, just that low-code environment, the fact that you don't have to have that high-level skill set, and even not just high-level, but very specialized skill set. You get a lot of developers who they may, like myself, I write PHP code, and I really struggle to then dive into the .NET side of things or any other application language that's out there. I can do it, but it's not something I can just do like that. Whereas with a tool like FME, I don't have to know what language it's running on behind the scenes. My suspicion, and I've never really confirmed this, but my suspicion is that it's running on Python as a core, but I don't need to know that. I just need to understand what the widgets are that are available to me and know how to hook them up, basically. And one of the really, really powerful pieces that's available out there is if you're trying to do anything, you just say, open up Google and say, FME, how do I do this? And there'll be a blog post or something out there. Somebody's done it and has put up a how-to cookbook to do exactly what you're talking about. And no matter how complicated your workflow or process you're trying to do, if you can break it down into bite-sized pieces, you're not doing anything that somebody hasn't already done and published some kind of an article on how to do that.
That's good advice. I love that. So you piqued my curiosity. Can you give me a few examples of how you're using FME at the San Antonio River Authority?
Absolutely. So a lot of what we use it really for, like I say, we do use it some for just core GIS. And if we wanted to talk to that, we would need to bring some of our GIS team in to talk about exactly what they're doing. Really, our biggest power that we're using it, especially with FME Flow, is for those continual processes that are running behind the scenes. So we do a lot of dam monitoring. So we have telemetry locations scattered around Barrow County in our southern basin. So the San Antonio River covers about 4 different counties in South Texas that it flows through. And we have telemetry across all 4 of those counties, and we use FME to help us consolidate that data so that then we can also then with FME provide alerting. So if there's some flooding that's occurring somewhere, somebody needs to start paying attention. We can use FME to start sending alerts out. We can use it to trigger automated phone calls using some of the HTTP calls that it can make. Other areas where we use it along the same vein is Bexar County and the city of San Antonio all maintain automated low water crossing gauges around Bexar County, where we're monitoring water over the road. So during rain events in San Antonio, we get a lot of localized flooding. This area is known as Flash Flood Alley for the United States. And they have automated rain gauges that will report back in telemetry. They turn around the city and the county and provide a REST service to us to tell us what the status is of those low water crossings, which we then warehouse that data and present it on a website called bearflood.org, where drivers can go in and on a website see what are the status of all the low water crossings around the county. After that, then we turn around and use FME to to help us collect and warehouse that data, but then we also turn around and provide a REST service to the Waze navigation app so that real time you can have Waze up and see those low water crossings, and it will actually route you around them if they are showing as closed. Waze then, because they're a subsidiary of Google, that data then bubbles up into Google Maps itself. So that's one area that FME is actually providing a lot of public safety for us. Other areas that we use it, we do a lot of overnight processing of data. So with our real estate, we marry it all together. We have an asset management system that we have every kind of asset in here, whether it's a building or a piece of property or a piece of equipment in the field. Inside of there, we have all of our real estate data of our thousands of parcels that we have. We either have clear ownership of, we rent, or we maybe have easements on. That then is tied through FME. We bring that asset management data, bring in CAD data every night that's getting updated, and marry that all together through FME so that we have a unified dashboard to show us what is the current footprint of all the land and property that we own and manage and maintain. Another one of the areas where we use FME is, again, with the whole telemetry, remote sensing and telemetry. One of the services that we provide for our emergency operations center here in Bexar County is what we call predictive flood modeling. So because we're in Flash Flood Alley, when a storm's coming in, our emergency operations center would like to be able to see where is the flooding going to be happening potentially, 4 hours from now, 6 hours from now, so that they could possibly start to proactively do road closures or stage equipment where they might need it. So one of the things that we're doing is we have a continuously running model that's pulling in the next-rod radar data and marrying that with moisture sensors in the ground so that we can then predict what the runoff is going to be. We use FME then to provide a REST service with this telemetry data that we're harvesting from all of our remote locations. One of the parameters that we're pulling is rainfall. So we're using our FME with our remote sensing to ground truth the rainfall amounts that the next-rod radar is providing. That's one of the things let me back up a minute there. That's one of the things that the next-rod radar does is it will show a meteorologist, okay, in this localized area, they're getting 4 inches an hour of rainfall versus maybe half a mile away, it's falling at half an inch an hour. So we're using FME to help ground truth that product that's coming from the National Weather Service so that we can then predict in the future what the flooding footprint might look like for our Emergency Operations Center. Another area where we use FME, and this is really more about the transformation, we do our utilities wastewater treatment. We do a lot of wastewater treatment. So we're not a water purveyor, meaning we don't give the water to people. We just take it from them and process what's coming out, the effluent coming out of the houses and from businesses. As such, though, if you think about it, when you get your bill every month, you just get a water bill. You don't get a water and a separate bill, a sewer bill. You get them combined as one. But because we're not a purveyor, we have several of the water purveyors around Bexar County contract us to do the sewer treatment. We get from them monthly reports what households they were providing water to. And one of the challenges we had prior to FME was always every single purveyor gives us a different report. And we've got to be able to take that report. It's usually a CSV file, a comma separated value text file, or an Excel spreadsheet. We've got to be able to parse that data, get it normalized to where the fields that they're using are the same, because each purveyor is giving us different fields. Get them all normalized and then get them into a standardized database so that we can then, finance team can then process that and figure out, okay, are we getting paid properly or not? That was always a challenge because we'd always have to use, again, this is where those specialized scripting or tools that required high-level knowledge were a real challenge, because periodically a purveyor will just change that file for us. When we moved everything into FME, we were able to basically create a standardized FME template that said, okay, cool, here are all the potential file types that are coming in. They're all individual data sources. And when each one comes in, we're going to just now use our GUI in FME to do the manipulations and transformations to get them all standardized. As purveyors do change that, because it's all in one standardized tool that doesn't require that high-level knowledge, it's much easier for a technician to be able to maintain and say, oh, you know what, this field has changed. Let me just make that quick tweak in FME, republish the job, and let's rerun it again. So that standardization that FME really brings to us, along with that not being so worried about what the data source is and the data output is I would say hands down the most powerful thing we get from it.
So I want to switch a bit to spatial and non-spatial data. So what types of efficiencies or improvements have you seen in integrating spatial and non-spatial data? And how has FME supported your team in handling these types of complex data transformations?
So again, I mean, the biggest thing for me, it's going to come back to that ease of use through the low-code solution that FME provides. FME is such a user-friendly interface. I can bring a new person in and quickly run them through a set of tutorials that the Safe software provides to get them up to speed on how FME works and how it processes the data. After that, really the biggest efficiencies for us are on the general maintenance, and also using the tools like FME Flow, the centralized server platform. That gives us one place where we can keep everything together so that we all know that we're working from the same plate. We're not worrying about who has the latest version of whatever process is being run. I can always go to the server, download it, work from that, republish it, and always know that we're all working from the same playbook here.
All right, Jordan, this has been tremendous. I would love to get your thoughts about recommending FME. Sounds like you had some really tremendous use cases that you had, but give me your thoughts.
I would absolutely recommend this, or anybody who's using it. I finally got the opportunity to go to the Esri User Conference this year. And when walking through that massive hall, there are, of course, all kinds of exhibitors. And I did find the Safe Software Square where they had everything they were showing, and they were in the process of doing a demo, and I wanted to walk up and see what they were showing. And there was a lady who was kind of hanging back a little bit, watching and looking a little reserved, and I walked up next to her, and we were both watching, and I turned to her and said, honestly, this is going to be the best investment that you could possibly make. The power that this tool brings to our organization has been just incredible. I 100% believe we've gotten our return on investment and continue to get our return on investment.
Yeah, I like this. Rosetta Stone of software. Very cool.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
That's great, Jordan. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us today. And thank you to everyone for listening. So I hope you took away a lot, as I did, from today's podcast. So if you want to learn more about FME, please go over to fme.safe.com. We'll be back with another episode in our podcast series. Until then, make sure you subscribe to this podcast on all major platforms and follow the conversation on our socials at EM360Tech on X and LinkedIn. And for more great daily content, head over to em360tech.com. Thank you.